Okay, so let's redo our script so that it addresses these three issues. The issue of possibly having an undefined index, the second issue of getting JavaScript potentially passed through the query string to our code, and finally the issue of possibly having a character encoding in the browser that doesn't support the characters that are getting displayed. So let's jump back to our resource pack directory, and let's open up the second step, which is called index.php slightly improving security. Copy this code and paste it over the code that's currently in your index.php file and save it. So now in our first line, instead of simply setting the value of input to the name parameter, we're checking to see if the name parameter exists first. This is using a ternary operator here, and it basically says that if this resolves as true, is set the name parameter in our query string, we're going to go ahead and use that value. If not, we're going to use world. So if name doesn't get passed, it will say hello world instead of hello name. Next, we're setting a header to define the character set. So we're setting the content type to text HTML, and then we're setting the char set, or character set, to UTF-8. So now, when the browser receives the response from our server, it will include these headers, and the browser now knows what character set to use. Finally, we're going to print this out using printf. Again, we're saying hello, and then we're setting a token for a string. And instead of just passing it this variable, what we're going to do is wrap it in HTML special chars. So this will take HTML characters like the brackets that go on the outside of the script tags, and it will convert them to a code that will display that character in HTML instead of processing it as an actual tag. So no matter what HTML tags we pass in through this input, they'll get converted into a format that will simply display that character inside of our text, instead of interpreting it as HTML markup. So the parameters that we're passing to HTML special chars are the value that we want to present, whether or not we want to convert single quotes into the special HTML character. We're setting that to true here by passing it ent_quotes. And finally, we're setting the character encoding to UTF-8. Make sure that this is saved, and let's take it for a spin. I'm going to go back to the browser and I'll hit refresh. Now again, we don't have a name parameter here, and so it says hello world instead of the name. If we add a name here and hit enter, it will now say the name. If we jump back to Firefox, where we can submit the script tags inside of our query parameter and hit enter, so the script never actually runs. And to demonstrate what an odd character encoding combination might do, I'm going to jump to the editor, and let's first print out a character that's not consistent between some different common encodings, which is this pound symbol here. I'm going to uncomment this line out and comment out the hello line, and save it. Now notice that instead of passing the UTF-8 here, we're passing ISO 88591. Which is also a common encoding, but it's not as universally supported as UTF-8. Now again, what HTML special chars does is it filters this string out based on what the encoding is to make it safer to display. So let's go back to the browser and refresh, and you see this odd symbol here. So what's happening here is that if we go back to the code, this character is being let through because we're specifying the character set to the ISO 88591 in HTML special chars, but we're setting the content type in the browser to UTF-8, which doesn't support this character. But if we instead set the character set to support this, let's comment out our initial header and add one that sets the character set to match what we're passing to HTML special chars and save it, and then refresh, you'll see we have our pound sign. Now, one more variation we might want to look at real quick here is what happens if we set the character set to UTF-8 in the browser. So we'll uncomment out this line, comment out the ISO character set. And for this line, let's go ahead and filter it based on UTF-8. So I'll copy UTF-8, paste it into the encoding here, save it, and then go back to the browser and refresh. And you see that we no longer have a character here at all. I'm going to jump back to our code. So what happens here is that this character, because it's not supported by UTF-8, gets filtered out through this HTML special chars function and cleans it up so we don't see that weird question mark in the diamond or some other odd combination of characters. Okay, Now, the reason I spent a little bit of time on this is because you're going to see this character set being passed throughout the examples as we go through this set. And if you don't really understand what the purpose of a character set is or why we would set it, it's going to seem a bit arbitrary. But now hopefully you understand where its value comes into play, and it won't seem quite as contrived as we go through the next set of examples.